Hello YouTube followers, my name is Victor and today we continue with another tutorial. In this video I will show you how to protect your login form from flooding attacks. So what is a flooding attack? Let's say you have a website and you have a login form like this one. You should have an email and a password in order to log in into the website. There are bots on the internet and people use bots to find out different passwords. And let's say somebody knows your email, and if they know your email, they may use bots to get your password, to find out what's your password. And when they use this kind of bots, they access your website using that bot, and using your email, they may think that your password is from 4 characters. So using that bot they have actually will try many times to log in into your website until this bot will find out what's your real password or what's your correct password. So this bot comes into your website, and on the email field this bot will use your email, and then on the password for the first attempt it will use, for example, if your password is from 4 characters, this on the first time it will use AAAA. Now if this is not the right password, the correct password, then it will use AAAB for the second attempt, and then for the third attempt it may use AAAC. So it's like it's trying always, it's trying to find out your correct password, like using different characters, different combinations, numbers, letters, capital letters, lowercase. And this bot is making an attempt per second or maybe more, but just to think like that, it's gonna be about 60 attempts per minute. So if you don't have any security on your login form, after a while or in a while they will find out what's your correct password. That's why you should have at least an anti-flood protection. And in this video I will explain you how to create a kind of protection for your login form. And by the way, if you didn't watch the previous course, I have a course about Google Analytics API and how to use the Google PHP library for that API. I do recommend you to go and watch at least the first video, because in the first video I explain how to create a login form. Actually, this is the same login form I used for that dashboard. So this is the same dashboard, I just removed the functions which I used for that Google API, and I have this dashboard right now which has just a login form for now. And you should go and watch the first video from that course. It's a separated playlist for that course. It calls Google Analytics API. I will also leave in the description below this video a link to that video, and you can find that video and watch it and see how to build a form like this one. And then after you are done, you just come back to this video and we will continue to create that security for your login form. Now, in order to create the security for this login form, you should have a database. Of course, you should have a table in the database for this security stuff. So there is a user table which has the email and the password, and then there is a security table. And the structure of this security table is, I have an ID, I have the attempts, I have the IP, type, and date. Now on the ID, you know already, this is the primary key for this table. This is an auto increment column. On the attempts, it will be the number of attempts the users will make on the website. And then there's the IP, which will save the user's IP, and then the type. So this security system, you can use it for any other forms you have on your website. Let's say you want to use it for registration form, or for any other form you want to secure, you want to protect them from flooding attacks. and you just write here the type of protection you will have. In my case, I will use just login, but it's easy, just change the parameter for the functions. Now in this column I save the date for the last attempt. So in this column I will save the day, the month, the year, and then I will also save the time. I will have the hour, minutes, and seconds. Now after you created this table, just let me show you how it works before, and then we will go ahead and we will take a look at the code. So I have the email here. Let's say this is my actually email, and then I choose a wrong password right now, for now, and I click login button. It tells me the login failed, error, login failed. Now if I refresh this table, I see that there is a new row, and I have on the first, this is the first row because the ID is 1, and then on the attempts number I have 1 because this is the first attempt from this IP. Now on the IP column, I don't have an IP for right now because I work on the local host. But when you are on the hosting, and if there is a real user, then you will have the user's IP in this column. Now on the type, you see I have login because this is the login form. That's how I named my form. And then I have date. This is today's date, and then I have the time. Okay, now let me try one more time. Let's say I'm trying the second time. This is again a wrong password and a wrong email. It doesn't matter what you write for the email because it saves your IP. So if I tried another time, and I refresh this table, I update the same row which has the same IP, and I change the attempts number, and I change the date, which in my case is changing just the time here, seconds or minutes. And then if I try one more time, a wrong password and the wrong email, it's gonna change one more time. So this is 3, and then the date 2. And if now I really write my correct password, it will tell me error, anti-flood, 15 minutes break. If I go here and I refresh, it doesn't change. This table doesn't change anymore, and my IP is blocked. It doesn't matter if I try the correct email and password, or if I try wrong one, it will show me anti-flood, 15 minutes break for 15 minutes. So I should come after 15 minutes and try again. Now if I delete this one from here, so I don't have anything right now, and if I try to log in using my password and my email, you see it works, and it redirects me to index.php again. So here you can see hi, and I have an exit link which goes to exit.php file, and then that file removes my cookies, removes the code from the browser, and then redirects me back to index.php. Alright, that's how it actually works. So you save the user's IP if somebody is trying to log in many times on your website, and if they try more than 3 times, then you save their IP and you block their IP for about 15 minutes, or you can choose for how long you want. Now let me show you how this PHP files looks like. So this is the script I have. This is the dashboard we built in that Google Analytics API course. Now in the core folder, I have another classes file, and then here for now you should have just the user.class.php. Now you should create another PHP file which is security.class.php, and I'm gonna open this user class for now, and then I will also open the security class, and I'm going to user.class.php file, and I will show you where I use these security functions. So I have a function. You should also have the same function, check data, and then there are 2 parameters. I won't explain everything from this function. I will just explain how the security class works. So on the first line of this function, I assign the connection to the database, and then I assign a new object to the security variable. The security object is from security class, you see here. And by the way, I also require this security class.php file right here, right below the configuration to the database, the connection. And then in this function, I assign that object, this one, I assign it to the security variable, and then right below this line I check if the check-in function from the security object returns 1, and I also have as a parameter which is login. This is the type I was talking about from the database. Remember, I had a type here, so I save here this kind of this word which is login. If you use it for any other forms, you can choose any other name, or even for this particular form you can also choose a different name if you want, but make sure you write the same name, the same type for each time you call these functions from your object. So if this checking function returns 1, I show an error message which says error anti flood 15 minutes break. Otherwise, if this function doesn't return 1, I go lower, we go lower, and then we check here, we check if the fields are empty or not, and then if they are not empty, we get the user with the email and password. We're trying to find the user with the email and password, and then if there isn't any user with that email and password, it means that somebody entered a wrong email or a wrong password. And then if somebody entered the wrong email and the wrong password, we call the reset date function from the security object, from this object. The reset date is here function. I will come here and I will explain what each function here. I just wanted to remember where we call these functions. So we call the checking, right? This is the first time when we access this function. So when we click the button right here, the Ajax calls this function, and right, the first call is the checking function. We check if there is any attempt in the database with this IP, and if there are more than 3 attempts, then we don't allow the user to log in into the website. Alright, now here we call this reset date function in case the email or the password is incorrect, and we show the login failed. That's the only places where we use this security stuff. So we have the reset date and then the checking function. Let's go to our security.class.php file. So this file looks like this. We have a class which is security, and then we have a function. We have 3 functions in total. We don't have many. This is the get IP. This function returns the user IP. And all this get env function with this parameter is the PHP predefined functions. You just copy everything from here as you see. And then the next function is the checking function. And in this function we assign, you see we have a parameter. This is the type, the checking, and this is the login here. We choose a type for our security. And we have the type here as a variable, and then we assign the connection. We get the user IP here, and then we delete all the data from the security table, which is this one means we delete all the data from the security table which is older than 15 minutes. So the date here is the column name, which is this date. Now we delete all the data older than 15 minutes. It doesn't matter what IP, we delete everything older than 15 minutes. We execute this query, and then on the next line we select the attempts from security table where the IP is equal to user IP, because this function gets the user IP, and then the type is equal to the type we choose here, which means login. Now we can have different types. We can have attempts from the same IP but a different type of attempt, which maybe that the same user tried to register or try to submit any other form. So this type is really important. Now here when we delete the old data, we delete data older than 15 minutes, and if there is any other data in this table, it means that's a new data, which means that there are recent attempts. So if we find the recent attempts from this IP, we check here if the number of the attempts is bigger than 2, which means if they tried more than 3 times to log in into the dashboard, the login form, then we return 1. So this function returns 1 if the user reached the limit of the allowed times to log in into the website. If this number it's not bigger than 2, then it doesn't return 1, it doesn't return anything, this function. So I think it returns false here by default, but we don't write anything here. We don't show that it returns false. This is by default. So if this doesn't return 1, then we will go next, and then on the next call it's the reset date function from the security. We call this function if the user entered a wrong password and a wrong email. So this reset date function looks like this. We have this function, we have parameter the type, and then we get the connection to the database, we get the user IP, and then we select the IP from the security table, where the IP is equal to user IP, and then the type is equal to the type from where we call this function. And here we check if the IP from the database we found it's equal to the IP to this user's IP. So the user IP is here, and then the IP from the database is here. So if they are equal, then we get the if they are equal, it means this user tried before too. This user tried before to log in, and he tried or she tried a wrong password or a wrong email. Now if these IPs are equal, then we select the attempts from the security table, where the IP is equal to the user IP, and then the type is equal to the type from where we call this function. It's equal to the what kind of attempts are these, or from what form they are coming. And then we get this number of attempts, and here we increase, you see, +1. So if this attempt has 2 or has 1, and this is the second time when they are trying a wrong password or a wrong email, then the 1 becomes 2, because 1 plus 1 is 2. And then if they try one more time, then 2 plus 1 is 3. So this right here we just increase the number of the attempts, and then we update the security table, and we update the attempts column and also the date. So we insert the now function, which will insert the current date and time. And then we have where the IP is equal to the user IP, and then the type is equal to the attempts type, which in our case it's login. But in case this IP from the database it's not equal to the user IP, if this IP are different, then we just insert, we have a new insert into the security table, and we insert in the attempts IP type and date the following data, the following values. So for the attempts we insert 1, which means if there isn't any attempt we should register 1, because we call this function only if the user entered a wrong password or a wrong email. So here we enter 1 for the attempts, and then for the IP we enter the user IP. For the type we insert the the attempts type, which is login, and then here we insert the date and the time. So that's how it works. We have 2 functions. Mainly we work only with 2 functions right here, and then this function checks if the user reached the maximum number of attempts, and if it reached, then it returns 1, and it means the IP is blocked. But if not, and if the user entered a wrong email and the wrong password, then we call the reset date function, which is here. And after we called it, we show an error message which says login failed. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to leave them in the comments. I will also leave a link to this dashboard, to this script. You can find it on GitHub, and you can download it from there. But I recommend you, if this is really important for you, and if you want to learn PHP, you have to write everything by yourself. So just stop the video. When I open a PHP file, stop the video and copy the code, and then start the video again. And then if I'm moving lower, just stop the video again and write everything you see from screen, and then continue like that. Because when you write by yourself, then you memorize it better, because you should memorize the queries to the database. You should memorize all those functions, like for example how to filter this IP, the name for this HTML special chars. And then this function, we didn't work with this function in the previous tutorial, so this function gets the IP and assigns it to the IP variable. And yeah, when you practice and when you write by yourself, you memorize it better and better. But when you just copy it, it doesn't stick into your mind as efficient as it sticks when you do it by yourself, you know. Alright, thank you very much, and see you in the next video tutorial.